So the developer version of iPadOS 17 has been out for a couple weeks now, and I've been using it every single day on my main iPad. And what I want to do in this video is talk about my top 5 favorite features that I believe everybody should know when it comes to iPadOS 17. Now we're still in beta 2, so Apple will gradually release some more features as we get closer and closer to the final release. For instance, we still don't even have the Journal app, but so far these are my top 5 favorite features. So definitely take out your Apple Pencil and your iPad to take some notes. Let's get into this video. Okay everyone, let's get right into this video, and like I mentioned, this is more so like 5 applications with some features inside of them, so there'll be a few more than just 5 features. But the first app I do want to talk about is the Notes application. The Notes application got a decent revamp when it comes to just overall usability, some new features, and like we've seen, the PDF editor. So the first thing I do want to show off is we got some new tools in here. So if you go into your actual toolbar and swipe across, you actually get 2 new actual tools. One being the calligraphy pen, which just makes everything look so much cooler. So you can kind of write with it. This is my name in cursive, supposedly, kind of, sorta. But the new calligraphy pen is cool, and it has all the same stuff. So you can make it extra thin or extra thick when you are writing. And again, of course, you have tilt sensitivity, where like the more you press, the more it actually shows up, which is how a calligraphy pen works. But then you also have a watercolor. So this watercolor, if I turn it into maybe this red color right here, let's scroll down and kind of show it off. It works exactly like a watercolor. If you've ever used a watercolor where it's like the more you press, the more water kind of spills out of it. It's a very, very cool animation, and it just seems so real, which is kind of baffling. So if I want to go really big, you kind of just tab, you can go really, really light with it, and then press down, and all of a sudden, you have this kind of much darker red color. So you can go really, really light, kind of, you can barely see it, and then press down, and then there it is. So, and even if I push down directly, it starts to kind of fill up, which is kind of what a watercolor brush does. So that is the new tools that we get inside of there. The next thing I want to talk about is the new PDF kind of editor. So Apple made it possible to now open up a PDF directly into the Notes app and make it editable right there. So you do get the ability to kind of see it. You can kind of long press on here and edit it to look up stuff, copy stuff. You know, you can use tools. You have the quick look, you have the copy, the rename, view large, small, medium, however you want to see it. So if I want to see it like this, I can do that. You have the autofill feature, which is great. So if you want to do the sample date and tap in here and then be able to type in the date, you can do that, and then I can press done. If I want to press this arrow again and make it actually large, then it shows up right here. So that's how you get the different views. You can actually show the thumbnail, so you show all the different pages that are in there. And then of course, you can actually use your tools right here that we were using earlier, maybe writing calligraphy, maybe it's a document that you need to sign, you can sign in real time, and you can also collaborate on it. So that's something new inside of the Notes application that I highly recommend using because it's just so useful. And now we don't really need those third-party PDF editors. And then the last thing I want to show off is the ability to link other Notes applications. Now this has to be my favorite one inside of the Notes app. So let's just make a title here, so whatever it is, right? And then we want to go down here, and if I actually tap right here, add a link, you can actually link to an internal note instead of just an external link. So link to, let's say, an iPadOS. So how well does Microsoft work on there? Press done, and now you can actually click on here and go to that actual note page or that separate note. So that's a huge one in my opinion. Just makes it easier to organize things, because let's say you're kind of working on a video or working on some notes and you want to link back to a note that you took maybe a couple days ago. You can now do that without having to actually like search through there or maybe write it down and then look it up later. But that is a Notes application. Those are my favorite features inside of there. So now let's get into the lock screen. There are 2 things that I want to bring up about the new lock screen on the iPad. So if I press on here and then long press, you now get the same animation, so you can customize your lock screen. So if I press on here, the first thing I want to mention is the dynamic lock screen. So you're able to actually use something like the weather, and it'll actually kind of start to show what the weather is like outside. So let's say like today, it's a very sunny day. You can see that there's some clouds moving, the sun is shining. If it was raining, it would be raining on the lock screen. You know, if it was cloudy, it'd be cloudy. If it was nighttime, you could see the stars and the skyline at nighttime. So I think dynamic wallpapers are one of my favorite things, but it only works on the lock screen. If you use it on the home screen, it still is kind of dynamic in a sense that it kind of changes depending on what the time of day is and what the temperature is and the weather, but it is a static wallpaper. So for instance, today, if I go into my wallpaper, you can see that I still have like the sunny wallpaper with the sun up here, but if it was raining, it'd be a much darker and grayer lock screen or home screen, but it would be a static home screen. But then after those dynamic wallpapers, you now have the ability to add widgets. So you have these widgets right here. So I just tap on here to add some smart lights, and these you can interact with on the lock screen itself to turn off and on your smart lights. You know, you can add battery stuff. There are third-party ones which are starting to pop up. So now you have a new section here that says these widgets are not optimized for the iPad lock screen. So we're able to maybe even throw something in there if you want to, but again, this is just a beta. But overall, I love the ability to use these lock screen widgets. And then one more thing to take note of is that if you go into the vertical mode, so if I move it like this, the actual lock screen widgets change a little bit. So you don't have the same lock screen, so you have to actually redo this in a different way. So click on here, press customize, go here, and you can actually add up to 4 different small ones. So the vertical and horizontal lock screen widgets are actually different widgets depending on how your iPad is orientated at the time. So the next thing I do want to mention is going to be probably the briefest one, and it's just interactive widgets. Interactive widgets have been kind of talked about for a very long time, but now we have them. So this is a new music widget, but I can actually press play. But as you saw, I pressed play and now the music is playing. The background changed a little bit. I can go right here and press play, or it takes me there. But I can actually just go back to the home screen and press the play button, and it's going to start to play that music right there, as you can see, and it changes the album art right then and there. This also works with actual HomeKit ones, so if I want to long press on here and add a HomeKit one and add this widget, that's an interactive widget that I can play with, so I can turn it off, turn it back on, and everything works perfectly fine. So third-party applications are going to be adopting this more and more, which I'm very excited about. So now let's get into feature number 4, or app number 4, and it has to be Safari. Safari got a nice revamp with a couple new features that people were asking for. So the first one that they actually did was they added an actual Face ID or Touch ID to unlock the private tab. So let's say you're using the personal tab, but if I want to go into private, it's actually asking for my Face ID to get in there. I have to give it my Face ID to be able to browse those other tabs that I was doing in the private section. So that's another added privacy bonus. And another thing that Apple did here, so if I press this plus sign, you'll be able to see something. So what is new in private browsing? So you have the locked private browsing right here. You also have advanced tracking and fingerprint protection. So help prevent websites from tracking or identifying your device using advanced techniques. You also have enhanced extension control. So extensions with website access are off by default. And then you have some search suggestions which were improved overall in the private section. So that's always great to see. And another thing that they didn't mention, private browsing with iOS and iPadOS 17 now no longer tracks your cookies, which is something that still was happening with iOS 16. So people thought, what was the point in private browsing if websites were still collecting your cookies and your cache and your data and still being able to kind of push ads to you even if you were private browsing? Now that feature is completely blocked. And now the next thing in Safari, I'm going to show it to you in the settings first, but if you go into the settings, scroll down to where you have Safari, you now have what I think is one of the best features, and that is a profile. So profiles are exactly what they sound like. You create a profile in your settings. Let's say it's, maybe a work one. I'm going to make it purple. Press done. So now what that means is that everything that I'm signed into, maybe my CRM, my ERP, my work email, whatever the case may be, is now going to be logged in via this profile. So now to actually access it, go over here to your tabs, and now you have this little drop down right here. By default, you're in the personal tab, but you now have the ability to change your profile to any of these other profiles, and it's going to be saved to that user. Now this is going to be great for people that, let's say, maybe they share an iPad and they have 2 different profiles in Safari. Maybe you and a significant other in your household share an iPad and you want to be able to be logged into all of your stuff without them seeing it, and vice versa. So now you can maybe have your own as well as your significant other on the same iPad with different login information and not having to maybe save everything and have everything pre-signed in. Now with these profiles, you can get that done and get it done correctly. So Apple, little by little, is maybe insinuating that we might get different overall profiles because between focus modes and now Safari profiles, we're this close to maybe Apple letting us have 2 complete different profiles to sign in from with one single iPad, especially the more expensive ones. And then the final thing that I want to mention, which is going to be kind of hard to show, but if you guys are aware, whenever you have maybe 2-factor authentication for your bank or your email or whatever the case may be, Safari will autofill that with those 6-digit code that comes via text. But now, for those companies that use an email with a 6-digit code or whatever the length of the code is, Safari will autofill pulling that information from the email. So that is a nice little add-on because I remember it being very tedious if maybe a bank uses 2-factor authentication via an email, I would have to go into the email, copy it or remember it, and then bring it over to Safari to be able to log in. So all welcome upgrades to Safari. So now before we get into the final feature, which is Stage Manager, I want to mention that everything that I talked about, these previous features are for all the iPads that support iPadOS 17, so the iPad 10th generation, the 9th, the iPad Air. You don't need an M series chip or any iPad Pro to handle those features. Now with Stage Manager, you do need an iPad Pro. So Stage Manager, the only way to activate it is if you have a 2018 or newer iPad Pro, so the A12X, the A12Z. You can also have an M1 or an M2 iPad Pro, and then finally the M1 iPad Air. So the cheapest way to get Stage Manager is the $600 iPad Air. So just to kind of give you guys some information on Stage Manager and what's new about it, From a function standpoint and from a visual standpoint, it looks relatively the same, but if you're somebody that uses Stage Manager a lot like myself, the welcome upgrades are just the overall variability in the ease of use of the windows. So for instance, if I want to pull up a Safari tab, it is now on the top right hand corner. So what's nice about this is that before it would kind of make everything go to the middle, but now you can actually free flow and put it wherever you want. So now if I want to put it up all the way over here in the top right hand corner, it's going to stay there without kind of pushing itself over. And then if I want to, let's say, open up LumaFusion over here, I can now almost have a little bit of a grid and have 4 applications open, whereas before, those 4 applications with iOS 16 would just kind of overlap on each other. So if I want to add a Notes application, yes, there's a little bit of overlap here, but you can have a much better view of the 4 grid items. So if, let's say the last thing I want to pull up is maybe another Safari tab, I'll grab this one right here, open it up, make it smaller, and then drag it over here. So now I have 4 windows which are easily viewable in a kind of this grid format, which I love to see. And then I still have access to my shelf over here. So if I want to kind of mess with the shelf or maybe go into this one and be able to do that, then come right back to my like little quadrants over here, I can do that and it stays exactly where I want it to stay, and it's very easy to use in my opinion. You can even grab one of these and move it over here if you want to, which is great to have. So Stage Manager overall got a bunch of improvements from a usability standpoint, which is what we wanted, right? Being able to have free-flowing windows, being able to have those 4 windows side by side to actually be able to multitask and not have something in the foreground versus the background is a great addition. So we're getting closer and closer to this iPad being more computer-like. And one more thing that I want to mention, kind of an honorable mention, has to be the new stickers. Now, I didn't think I'd be very intrigued by the sticker feature, but it is actually very cool. So there's 2 ways to actually do it. So if you go into your Photos app and long press the way that iOS 16 let us long press to kind of pull out the actual subject and move it around, you now get this button that comes up here that says add sticker, and you're able to add sticker in different ways and different formats. So you can add effects over here so that you can actually have the sticker that continues to move if it's kind of a looped motion or a live photo. You can add the little cutout right here if you want to, make it kind of a watercolor or a comic. You can make it puffy. You can even make it shiny like a holographic card or something. I like the original because it does move with it, which is great to see. And then to actually access it is very easy. You go into your Messages app, you press on this little plus button right here, you press stickers, and then the stickers that were recently added show up here, so you can easily just kind of grab one of them and do one of these guys and make it even bigger if you want to. So then it starts to move. I think it's a feature that's worth noting, so that's why I put it kind of at the end as an honorable mention. And as of right now, iOS 16 users can receive these, but they cannot actually kind of use them. Obviously, it's only an iOS and iPadOS 17 feature, but those are all the features that I wanted to cover with iPadOS 17. Let's finish up this video. So that is just about going to do it for this video, everybody. And like you guys saw, Apple seems to be blurring that line between iOS and macOS even more. iPadOS is kind of getting more and more of these desktop features. For instance, Stage Manager is getting much better when it comes to windowing, free-flowing windows, being able to use it as an actual desktop interface, but it still has that iOS and mobile character that makes it an iPad. So I don't know what Apple's endgame is with the iPad overall. It's powerful enough to be your desktop, but it's mobile friendly enough to be kind of like a dumbed down tablet. It's whatever you want it to be at this point. So to each their own. I like to use my iPad as my main computer. And depending on who you are and what your workflow is, you might like to do the same. But that's going to do it for this video. Leave a comment down below of what your favorite feature was that I mentioned, or if there's maybe another feature that I left out. And also, I'm going to link down in the description our new Discord channel. If you guys do want to check it out, definitely join in, because myself, Derek, and Jeff will be in there answering any questions, communicating, and just overall interacting with everybody. So definitely hit that link down there if you guys do want to check it out and join the Discord. It's absolutely free. But that's going to do it for this video, everybody. If you made it to the end, leave a little dolphin. And if you guys want to watch more iOS, iPadOS, or macOS videos, click on one of these videos right here. And until next time, I'm Fernando. I'm out of here, everybody. Peace. My iPad is my computer, and it's going to stay that way for a while.